What's up YouTube, Zazubaar here, and welcome once again to Zmmr. When most people see Arnold Schwarzenegger's name and face on the poster and DVD cover of a movie, they don't expect anything more than a brainless, paper-thin action movie. Predator is unfortunate enough to be categorized like this and in the same league as movies like Commando and The Eraser. Predator is an action movie, and it's an entertaining one, but it's also a monster movie, and it's a great one. In order to understand what the movie does really well and what I'm mainly going to talk about in this review, let's get some background out of the way. After the release of Rocky IV, there was a popular joke floating around Hollywood that in order for a Rocky V to be made, Rocky would have to fight an alien because he had fought everyone else on Earth. A funny joke to be sure, and what probably would have made for a much more entertaining sequel than what we actually got from Mr. Balboa. Two writing partners, Jim and John Thomas, thought about the joke and thought it would be interesting if they made a movie based on it. The two wrote out a script for the idea called Hunter, eventually settling on Predator instead, in which a muscle mound of a man does battle with an even more deadly alien in the jungles of Central America. The script was picked up by 20th Century Fox, and after the success of Commando, it was decided that Arnold Schwarzenegger would be the perfect prey for the Predator. However, after reading the script, Arnold said the movie might work better if it wasn't just him fighting the Predator in the jungle, but a whole team of deadly soldiers being hunted. So the script was reworked to feature a whole team of muscle-bound mercs and an alien with an interesting overbite. After the success of Alien, Stan Winston was commissioned to create the suit and design of the Predator for the film. Mr. Winston was on a plane back from England with James Cameron, who said to Winston, "You know, I've always wanted to see a creature with mandibles." So, technically, the Predator and Alien were involved long before any comic book or crappy movie came along. Anyway, so the film was released in the summer of 1987 to a very nice box office and critics who I think were kind of unfair to the movie. I think what was done in Predator was very original, even though it was based on a joke, yet critics often call it a rip-off of movies like Rambo and Alien. Rip-off? No. Similar to them, yes. Predator is really a cult classic in a very similar way to how War of the Gargantuas is. It's got a lot of iconic scenes and dialogue, a reptilian monster ripping people apart, and a theme or purpose to the monster. Well, with the background of Predator out of the way, let's move on to the plot. A special ops team of commandos, led by Major Dutch Schaefer, played by Arnold, is sent to Central America to rescue a cabinet minister who's being imprisoned by guerrilla rebels. When the team arrives, they're shocked to find out another team skinned and hung in a tree. Dutch and the team's tracker, Billy, can already tell there's something weird going on, and are asking questions about how much info their CIA escort, Dylan, played by Carl Weathers, is giving them. They continue to move through the jungle searching for the cabinet minister, but are being watched from something in the trees that uses infrared to follow them. It follows them to a guerrilla camp where a rather awesome action scene takes place, and plenty of 80s-esque explosions takes place. They take a young girl named Anna captive who seems to know what's watching them trek through the jungle is. She attempts to escape from the group and ends up getting one of them named Hawkins killed by the Predator, who comes out of the jungle, camouflaged, and rips him apart. The team just blames it on more guerrilla rebels except Dutch, and continues to move on to their evac point. However, the Predator picks the team off one by one until they decided they have to make a stand, and otherwise they'll be killed. They set a trap for the Predator, which ends up getting Poncho, the team's demolition expert, injured. The Predator ends up killing everyone except Anna and Dutch, who the Predator pursues. Dutch and the Predator have a classic climactic showdown, and the Predator finally reveals itself. Dutch manages to defeat the Predator, but the Predator uses a wrist explosive to blow up a good portion of the jungle and tries to kill Dutch one last time. Dutch survives the explosion, which killed the Predator, and is flown off in a helicopter and the credits roll. Predator is, in my opinion, something that can only work in movie format. It's a very visual movie. There's a lot of shots of men just walking through the jungle, and the Predator watching them do this. In another movie, I would call this boring and just an excuse for location shooting. In Predator, though, I think it's part of the film's overall impression. The whole movie is set in this jungle, there's very little setup, and the Predator seems to have mastered the terrain and already killed a good amount of people before Dutch and his crew arrive. The movie is about the hunt, and it completely devotes itself to a very cliched term. The hunter has become the hunted. But since Predator devotes itself to it, it's the best example of this term on screen. Contrary to popular belief, and something I've heard practically no one mention, is that the movie does have a theme. Predator is all about weakness, and opponents exploiting each other's weaknesses to overcome the other. The characters are all established in their opening scenes as no-nonsense badasses and killers, but what I like is they're all given a weakness, including the Predator itself. I think it's important to note that the movie isn't called The Predator. May just seem like a way to shorten the title, but I honestly think it's representing that everything, and I mean everything, has a weakness, including the Predator. Dutch has a great line when the team is talking about setting a trap for the Predator. He says, "If it bleeds, we can kill it." He's basically saying that everything has a weakness, and Dutch is characterized and described as the perfect warrior, and so is the Predator. They're the perfect opponents because they both make each other realize their own mortality. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the other characters, because in my opinion the movie's best examples of its themes is in the scenes where it's just Dutch versus the Predator. But there is one particular example that's not Dutch, but it's a great example of the movie's themes. Unfortunately, though, this example I'm bringing up isn't fully developed, and I'm of course talking about the friendship between Mac and Blaine. Their friendship is only hinted at in a few scenes before Blaine gets a plasma blast through the chest. However, besides the dichotomy between Dutch and the Predator, I do think it's the best example of the theme of weakness. As I said, Blaine gets killed by the Predator relatively early in the film. This causes Mac to lose it, and he takes every chance he can to kill the Predator, including one funny scene where everyone, started by Mac, starts shooting randomly into the jungle trying to hit the camoed Predator. It's unintentionally funny, but it does exemplify Mac's weakness and Dutch's, which I'll get to in a minute. Mac's blind rage of trying to get revenge for Blaine makes him sloppy as a soldier, and then it shows how the Predator is capable of bringing a tough-as-nails soldier to his knees because of one weakness. The Predator does end up killing Mac because of his need for vengeance when Mac runs off on his own to kill the Predator, and is no match for the creature on his own. But before his head gets blown apart, Mac says something to Dutch that I think only further exemplifies how the Predator uses an enemy's weakness to kill its prey. Dutch says to Mac concerning Blaine's death, "He was a good soldier." To which Mac replies, "He was my friend." Blaine's death has caused Mac to lose his soldier's mindset of being cold and calculated, and made him instead into emotionally charged man, and the Predator uses that to his advantage. The scene may be sending us a message that no one should become emotionally attached and remain cold and calculated, until there's a counterexample. The team has set up a lot of tripwires and things like that around their camp one night after Blaine has been killed, whose body they still have. The Predator kills things because it wants to make trophies, and if it must have its trophy or it fails its hunt. So it scares a pig into the campsite, which sets up all the tripwires and gets the team distracted. The Predator takes Blaine's body during all this and finally gets its trophy. The Predator too is emotionally attached. It must have its trophy, and it'll do it no matter what the cost. And in a later scene, this comes back to bite it. This is a counter message. It says that everything is emotionally attached to something, and there's no way around it, and that it's okay. I love that. The movie puts the cliche of action heroes who are always cold and calculated, and says that everything is emotional about something. Nothing's perfect. Now you could argue that Dutch is your cliched action hero, that he is perfect, But he's characterized and described in the trailer as the perfect warrior. He's shown as such when he attacks the guerrillas' rebel camp. He and his team blow it apart without him getting a scratch. When Anna walks up behind him with a pistol ready to kill him, he immediately knows it and stops her before she even knows what's going on. It sounds like he doesn't go with the theme, but I've been describing that he contradicts it, but no. He's the best example that everything has to have a weakness. Dutch's weakness is similar to Mac's. It's an emotional one. But it's different in that Dutch's emotional weakness is loyalty to himself and others. In the opening scene, Dylan asks Dutch why he passed up a mission. Dutch says, "We're a rescue team, not assassins." This implies that Dutch is very loyal to his ideals and won't contradict them no matter what. When Dutch finds out that he betrayed those ideals when it's revealed that there was no cabinet minister and Dylan made the whole story up to get them to eliminate the guerrilla camp, he's extremely angry and disowns someone who he considered a friend. He even says, "What happened to you, Dylan? I thought you were someone I could trust." To which Dylan responds, "I woke up. Why don't you?" This dialogue represents that Dutch won't ever betray his own ideals, or to enforce what I said about him being loyal to others, the ideals of his team. The final battle between Dutch and the Predator is where the theme really plays out on screen, and it starts when Dutch sees his entire team being killed by the Predator. It's only him and the captive girl Anna who picks up a gun and tries to shoot the Predator, but Dutch doesn't let her because the Predator only kills those who are a threat or armed. So he's showing his weakness of putting others before himself, and is promptly clipped by the Predator's plasma blast for it. Again, it seems like the film is giving us a message that supports being cold and calculated, until Dutch is rewarded for his being loyal to his own ideals, when he discovers that the Predator can't see him when he's wearing mud camouflage. Okay, so we talked about Dutch's weaknesses. So to finish off the film's dichotomy, let's talk about the weaknesses Dutch exploits about the Predator. I've already mentioned the Predator's emotional attachments to its trophies, and I'll finish that off now. The Predator loses Dutch after he covers himself in mud, and returns to finishing off making trophies of the men he's already killed. So Dutch prepares for the final showdown with the Predator, and after he's done, and ready to fight, he screams out, and that attracts the Predator. The Predator immediately reacts to this scream, which I'll admit is a little bit unintentionally funny, but it demonstrates the Predator's main weakness of needing to get its trophy no matter what the cost, which in this case results in its death. Another thing this movie does really well is that it gives the monster a personality, which, much like what was done in War of the Gargantuas, the Predator is characterized as very cocky and almost full of itself. It's another one of his weaknesses that Dutch exploits in their fight at the end of the movie. It's also the main example of the movie's theme of everything having a weakness. The Predator considers itself perfect. It doesn't think there's any way for Dutch or the other soldiers to hurt it. To almost prove to Dutch that it's right, it doesn't kill him when it would have been easy to. The Predator has Dutch in a chokehold, and could have easily stabbed him with its claws, but instead decides to give Dutch a fighting chance by taking off all its weapons and revealing its real face to Dutch. And what I love about this scene is that almost the whole time the Predator beats the crap out of Dutch, it's from the Predator's perspective, almost to show how full of itself the Predator is. However, this cockiness ultimately is the Predator's downfall. He has Dutch in a corner, and instead of going straight for the killing stroke, he slowly moves around Dutch and goes to attack him on the other side, and does a little grunt that almost says, "Ha ha, I've gotcha!" Then Dutch kicks a wire that brings down a log on the Predator, which doesn't kill him, but critically injures him. There's also a final line I want to bring up because it's the completion of what I said before. Dutch and the Predator make each other realize each other's mortality. When the Predator is down, Dutch asks it, "What the hell are you?" And echoing his own line, the Predator says in English, "What the hell are you?" I love that. The hunters became the hunted of each other, and both acknowledge this. Is it a little hokey how the Predator picks up the English language in a second? Yeah, of course. But it underlines the film's theme and the rivalry between Dutch and the Predator. Also, the effect one had on the other. But the Predator is one who can't accept this. Dutch does and decides to learn from it, but the Predator shows that it can't change and accept its own mortality because it's too full of itself. When it tries to blow Dutch and itself up with the wrist mini nuke, okay, and laughs maniacally. Dutch is again rewarded for proving he's better than the Predator by becoming Indiana Jones for a second and surviving a nuclear blast. Predator is a very underrated movie because everyone calls it nothing more than a dumb action blockbuster. And although the theme is a little simple and the characters a little too cliched, I think it deserves a little more credit than it gets. Anyway, so as I did with War of the Gargantuas, I will of course talk about the amazing Predator suit effects designed by Stan Winston. But what can I say? The Predator's design has become a classic monster look and pays homage to other creature designs like The Thing, while making its own unique impression. The Predator's actual face is so expressive that I rarely even remember that it's animatronics when I'm watching. And shame on Predators for using CGI for the faces. There's very little I have to complain about in Predator because in my book, it's the perfect monster movie. It's entertaining as all hell, has a really unique monster design to show off, awesome atmosphere, likable characters who I enjoyed taking the trip into the jungle and encountering the monster with, and as I've stated in the past, is most important, awesome pacing. One last thing I want to commend this movie for is having little to no exposition. Everything we learn about the Predator is by experience it along with the movie's characters, and although it's fun to have scientific exposition in some monster movies, it would have seemed out of place here. They're soldiers, not scientists. They learn about their enemy from experience, not theory. Anyway, Predator is one of my favorite movies of all time, for all the reasons I said above and even more. And since I review monster movies on Zmmr, my rating scale is in terms of monster movies. And although I may get a little slack for this, I'm giving Predator a 5 out of 5. There's just very little I have to complain about, and what there is doesn't take away from my overall enjoyment of the movie. If you haven't seen Predator, for reasons I don't even want to know, go buy it. It's the perfect movie for a Friday night or any night. Another monster movie in the bag. Well, the next monster movie I'm going to review is a definite one. On the next Zmmr, Son of Kong. That's all I have to say. Zazubaar out.
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you